All right. Testing, testing. I think I got the mic working. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Scarred Thumb Podcast. That's what I'm naming my podcast now. I had to come up with a name at some point, so is what we chose. Hope you guys have been enjoying your week. We're going to be talking today about video games. I just hope you enjoyed that countdown timer that I put on there. I might edit that out for if you're watching on video, I might edit that out just so we can start immediately. We're going to go in today. We're going to discuss regulations, potential regulations on login rewards, Pokemon that outdated, that franchise in decline, and of course the absolutely ridiculous cost of AAA games. So, without further ado, get into it. All right, so this is from Al Jazeera. News and technology. China considers revising gaming rules after tech giants lose billions. The draft documents outlining restrictions caused major stir as tech stocks tumbled, sent investors into a panic. All right, this is from the 23rd of December. Chinese authorities have said they may revise newly drafted online game rules shortly after the planned restrictions caused major tech companies to lose billions of dollars. I don't really like the way they frame this, but let me keep reading. State broadcaster CCTV reported on Saturday that the authorities have heard concerns and opinion raised by all parties, adding that the state press and publication administration will study them carefully and further revise and improve them, referring to media regulators. So what is this about? Authorities released draft on Friday with a wide range of rules and regulations aiming at curbing online spending and rewards in video games. Its impact was immediate, dealing a massive blow to the world's biggest gaming market. Investors went into a tailspin, leading to as much as $80 billion in market value being lost, wiped off China's two biggest companies, industry leader Tencent Holdings and NetEase. According to the new rules, online games would be banned from giving players rewards if they log in every day, if they spend money on the game for the first time, or spend several times on the game consecutively. While there are common incentive mechanisms in online games, CCTV reported that regulators may now change the wording of the sections of the draft rules that limit the ability to encourage daily logins and wallet top-offs. China has become increasingly tough on video games over the years. Its first major move against the gaming sector came in 2021. Beijing set strict playtime limits for under 18, suspended approval of new games for about 8 months, citing gaming addiction concerns. So, this is interesting. China trying to... Is my mic loud enough? Let me see. Let me probably turn a little... Let me find it. Let me find my mic here. Testing. All right, that might be a little bit... All right, there we go. So, what they want to do is try to stop login rewards, and I actually have an article about this that I prepared here. This is the science and craft of designing daily rewards and why free-to-play games need them. This is all the way back from 2016. This has been a long time coming. Most free-to-play games, both PC and mobile, face an ongoing retention challenge. To make money, you need to keep more and more players playing the game on a regular basis, since active players are the ones most likely to monetize. But to get back regular players, you need to give them a compelling reason to keep coming back. And these concerns the rising cost per acquisition of new users. You work hard to acquire them, and they cost more every year. You should work just as hard to keep them. One key solution I strongly recommend. So this is back in 2016, now 2023. So what? That's 7 years ago. So this is really when it first started up. This is stuff in place. I strongly recommend a repeat login bonus, which reward players every day they log in a free reward of virtual goods. These bonuses leverage a well-known principle of behavioral economics, operant conditionings of a given player by a positive reinforcement, in this case, increasing logins by associating them with a reward. While claiming the reward, users associate the positive feedback with login behavior and tend to associate this positive feeling with the game as a whole. As a result, users tend to log in the game more frequently and play more often. This is something they've been doing for a long time in gaming. And it's just, like I said, behavioral science. You give positive reinforcement every time they log in. You have sort of increasing login rewards. Of course, there is like a limit to that because let's say you have like a 1 month login, 30 days, and then, sometime during the middle of that, the biggest rewards at the end, if you actually get all those days, but let's say they miss a day, something happens in the middle of a month, all of a sudden, I can't get that login reward anymore at the very end, so they're just like, I won't bother. So that can actually be in reverse because then it's a negative experience if they miss 1 day. So I've seen like a lot of games like Genshin Impact kind of have these login rewards that are, sort of like 1 week. So if you get all 7 days, you're good. But, if you missed a day, it's not going to be too bad because, you just start again the next week. This has been a very big part of free-to-play games. And a lot of games, I think a lot of live service does this too, just because they want to keep players continually playing these games. Of course, China has, some concerns about it, kind of video game addiction, video game spending. A lot of these Chinese games especially rely a lot on that. People spending too much on these games. When it comes to as far as like regulating the games, then, I'm not too sure about that. There's a book called, I believe it's Lost Attention. Let me look that up quickly. Lost Attention was a book, I think it was called. Stolen Focused by Johan Hari. But that I read, for the guy's really big lib. So like most of his solutions are like, we need to put in more laws, more regulations to, stop these tech companies, because there's a lot of tech companies right now. They're spending millions of dollars to basically try and like, how do we make the game as addictive as possible? How do we get people coming back to Twitter, coming back to Facebook? What mechanics and bells and whistles can we do to get them coming back so they can get their eyes in front of our app so we can, turn that into ad dollars, essentially. That's how we keep them on it. That's how we keep making money. And, I mean, this Johan Ari, I think that's his name, is making the case that, you need government regulation because the sort of single mom person of color with like one arm can't possibly fight these, billionaire tech giants. She can't possibly be responsible for her own actions. And that's kind of like where sort of left and the right kind of disagree. The problem is obvious. They'll agree on the problem, but the solution is totally different in how they see it. And of course, China being sort of a left-wing communist country wants to sort of regulate it. But at the same time, they're also a bit capitalist. They like that money, that sort of 10 cent and the rest bring in power. So they're kind of like, ooh, we want to regulate this, but we also don't want to make these companies lose a crap ton of money. I'm sure they have quite a bit of influence in the government as well. And of course, I don't like the way they frame this as losing. Their revenue. They lost billions of dollars. It's really just their stock went down. So basically, when the stock goes up, I mean, do they gain money? I mean, it's kind of weird. It just all really depends on when you sell it. But through the sheer impact, global video. I mean, Tencent is huge, absolutely huge in gaming right now. I don't know too much about Tease, but Tencent has their fingers in a lot of things. I think they might own League of Legends, if I'm right. But I don't know if regulation is going to be the correct action, but I definitely think that it is bad design to have these login rewards. I love the free to play, sort of market. I think it's great, especially for competitive games. We get games like Genshin Impact. I don't know if it's quite as good because it's single player. It kind of leads to, bad mechanics when it's free to play, where it's like, all right, I'm using gotcha systems to get the best characters. You're essentially pay to win as far as like passing these challenges. Like most of the challenges are straight DPS checks. So from that perspective, free to play, it leads to bad design. But when you look at the competitive side of it, where it's just basically based off skins, maybe like some passes and that kind of thing, it can be really good because it's really easy to get all your friends to join in and play. So why not? Why not enjoy it like that? It's that part's fun. That is the issue that China's facing. I think again, this actually kind of segues into our next topic, as more and more companies want to go to live service. They want to try and monetize people playing their games as much, and it is because the absolutely insane cost to make video games today brings us on to our next topic. Let's go up here. Poorly redacted Sony doc reveals Last of Us and Horizon sequels cost $200 million plus. The scale. Modern game budgets accidentally laid bare by court documents. This is from VGC News, hosted by Andy Robinson. So, poorly redacted document published as part of Microsoft versus FTC court battle have laid bare the scale of PlayStation's budget for its modern blockbusters. One document published on Wednesday discusses the huge sum required to develop major first-party games at Sony Interactive Entertainment, redacting key figures such as team size, budgets, and development time. However, as discovered by journalist Tom Warren, the redacted information appears to be done so with a pen and then scanned in by lawyers, meaning the numbers were still clearly visible shortly after the documents and docs were pulled. Let's see, Tom Warren's got it here. As you can see, this is like, it's always funny when you have, a billion-dollar publisher, billions of dollars. You could see the millions and millions of dollars on these projects, and their lawyers are using Sharpies to redact this secret information, because you could clearly see that this first-party release lasts a total of 5 years, starting 2017, ending in 2020. The game costs, and that it's Sharpied out, but it looks like it's $2,013,000. They actually have the whole. They actually kind of went in and discovered what it is. The reveal document is Horizon Forbidden West cost some $212 million to make. It was worked on by around 300 employees for 5 years. Last of Us Part 2 cost some $220 million to make. Was worked on by around 200 people over 5 years. So that's insane budgets, a huge period of time. It was already known modern AAA games cost over $200 million to create, but this is the first time the scale of the SIE's budget has been revealed, and it's likely these figures do not include non-development costs such as marketing, which is insane if it doesn't. I mean, speaking in 2020, PlayStation's boss, Sean Layden, who oversaw the development of Last of Us Part 2, discussed what he viewed to be the unsustainable cost of creating modern blockbusters. Layden referred to a common theory that development costs has doubled within every new console generation, and claimed the last-gen games had reached between $80 million and $150 million for most AAA games. The problem with the model is that it's just not sustainable, he said. I don't think that in the next generation you can take those numbers and multiply them by 2 and think that you can grow. He added, I think the industry as a whole needs to sit back and go, all right, what are we building? What's the audience expectation? What's the best way to get our story across and say what we need to say? The former PlayStation exec who left Sony in 2019 after a 3-decade career suggests that shorter games could help control development costs on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. So he ends this with a quote. There has been a sort of growing movement of the I want a shorter game with worse graphics crowd. The sort of a battle cry against a lot of these, bloated AAA games that last long, have a lot of filler missions. Like, just give us something that's, shorter, sweeter, and doesn't necessarily cost a ton of money. But if we look at this article, 212 million, 220 million, absolutely insane numbers for these AAA games. And this is Sony. You got to assume that, things like Blizzard, like Diablo 4, has a budget around the same, maybe not as much, maybe worse. Who knows? It's really hard to say. Obviously, Diablo 4 had a lot of development issues too, so that could have increased the cost very easily. And this is, I think, really one of the main problems with the video game industry today. If you look at a lot of the woes and the sort of, I don't think it's really any secret that AAA games aren't what they used to be. A lot of people have been complaining, like, for every like really good, solid AAA game, like say Tears of the Kingdom, you have something like Starfield, which I think some people, some Bethesda fans really liked. I think for a lot of people it was a disappointment. You look at the Steam reviews, it's doing pretty poorly. A lot of mixed reviews. You look at Diablo 4 came out to did really well at the beginning. And then people quickly realized that, hey, the end game kind of sucks. There's a lot of issues. Then, of course, it came out with a disastrous first patch, which lost a lot of the player base. They're like, what the heck are you doing? Why are you nerfing stuff that's already, when the game is already kind of like bland as it is? And they've slowly had to like work hard to improve it. And obviously their first event was kind of weak, not what people expected. So there's been a lot of course, constant delays as well, which further increases costs on a lot of AAA games. So there's been a lot of flaws. And, of course, you also have I don't even play the sort of yearly editions of Modern Warfare that decide to come out. But you also see in the monetization of these games and how it hurts the sort of gameplay in it, because you have to constantly have skins. You constantly have to have loot boxes. There's a constant need to recoup your money. Maybe it's increased costs, going from $60 to $70, raising, the price of admission on these games. There's a lot of things in it that are really contributing to the loss in quality of video games. Like, say, the length of games, where you have to pad out how long it takes. That way, as we talked about before on the podcast, this sort of a dollar to cost ratio, where it's like, all right, I need a game that is just $100 per hour. Like, if it's a $60 game or $70 game, am I going to get $70 worth, or 70 hours of playtime out of it? But it seems to be like we got to pad this up now that we've got the game. We got to make it open world. We got to make it live service. That way we can sort of have people log in, like we talked about earlier with the login rewards. That we keep them playing. Put in habit forming sort of mechanics into the game, so we can continually monetize them. With skins or some other mechanics. A boost. You can get your little like daily boost. Your seasonal passes. All these things that kind of come from, not just, increasing profits, but breaking even at this point. This is, there's definitely some trouble in the gaming industry, especially during this this era. And, of course, moving forward, you can't double like 200 million. That's insane. But, you see it in a lot of places right now. And then, a lot of people like me and others have just kind of turned to looking at sort of like these indie games, like Blue Revolver here, which are just, cheap. You can play $10-15 for a game. I, play this for like 16 hours and really enjoy it. It's made with love. It's, it doesn't have, gigantic graphics, but the gameplay is solid. It's fun. And, it has like character to it. It's unique. It's really nice. But this is, this is a problem going forward for video games. What are they going to do about this cost? And hopefully, uh, I'm hoping to see more small time, or at least these sort of major developers investing in smaller studios, having people that go in and what's the word I'm looking for? Have these small studios making sort of unique games, taking risks. That's the other thing that really is bad about the ballooning cost of these games. You don't see any risks. People aren't making new IP. That's everything's going to be a remake. It's a Resident 4 remake. It's Last of Us remake. It's Metroid remake. They need these sort of built-in audiences so they can guarantee they'll at least get some of this money back from the game. Like, oh, we need X remake, new version of Luigi's Mansion is coming out. It's it's insane. Like I'm glad. I guess some of the new generation gets to play some of these old games I loved, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my god, could you come out with something new, please? But that's here nor there. It's definitely something that's got to change, and hopefully it does. Hopefully we have some, like I said, some of these major companies like letting smaller studios, smaller teams come out with some really unique and crazy stuff. That would be my hope. The good ending for this scenario. Bad ending is, I guess, just more monetization in games, higher cost of games. And who knows what the future will bring here. Of course, as we're right at the beginning of a 2000, we're about to go from 2020 to 2024. One thing. Let's move on to the next article, which is we're going to look at Pokemon in 2023 and what that review has to show us. All right, so let's go over here. This is from Kotaku. This is by Kenneth Shepard. Pokemon 2023 showed the darker side of the Pikachu machine. Pardon me while I take a drink. Pokemon profit margin didn't reflect it, but the franchise had a rough year in 2023. Without a new mainline role-playing game to dominate the series headlines, Pikachu and Friends were instead shrouded in controversies throughout the past 12 months, between Pokemon Go answering swaths of its community, scalpers making a public embarrassment of the franchise to people who don't even pay attention to it, and Scarlet and Violet's DLC underlining the problems ingrained with the Pokemon pipeline. The screws are coming loose on the hype train, and yet it cannot be stopped as it barrels down the track. Pokemon's 2023 had its moments, but overall, it was pretty grim for a series usually so full of hope. Wow. Rough words from Mr. Shepard here, but let's kind of look. Got Detective Pikachu, which I bet was kind of a well-received game. I'm not going to talk about that because I don't know anything about it. Pokemon Sleep, I haven't tried yet, but that finally came out. I remember years ago that was like, oh yeah, Pokemon Sleep, this will be cool. Apparently it seems like kind of like I guess encouraged, aimed at children. We'll see. Pokemon remains a community hub. Pokemon Go Fest still continuing. This is pretty cool. I've never been to one, but I used to play Pokemon Go quite a bit. Seemed like a pretty cool idea. Of course, I'm not going to head over all the way to Seattle just to play Pokemon Go. The anime, finally, Ash stepping down as the protagonist. They're putting in new people as the protags, which is pretty incredible to see. I don't think I'd ever see the day when Ash went. I thought just the anime would die with him. So it remains to be seen, how they'll be received. That's pretty cool. Then you have like stuff like Pokemon Concierge, which looks like crap. The animation looks great. I shouldn't say it looks like crap, but the writing, from what I've seen, is crap. It's like Netflix, made by Netflix, so it's like written by Netflix people. Looks like it was written by a woman for women, so no thanks. Pokemon Concierge, live action drama. I have not seen that. I think it's in Japanese. Let's move down to the games. Scarlet and Violet DLC highlights the best and the worst of the base game. While there's no new RPG in 2023, Scarlet and Violet got a 2-part expansion called The Hidden Treasures of Area Zero in the Teal Mask and Indigo and the Indigo Disc. Fans got a new map to explore, Pokemon to catch, and tools to build competitive teams. While the new story beats don't capitalize enough on the base game's incredible endings, to my liking, one major exception, I'm still happy about to run around new places with friends and co-op and learn about this world. Sadly, in the year since Scarlet and Violet launched, Game Freak hasn't managed to get the game into a fully functional state, and the Teal Mask and Indigo's new open map world maps are just as if not more buggy and ugly than Paldea was in 2022. Ouch. That is one of the big things that was criticized. I mean, the bugs, the hilarious looking bugs, and of course just how ugly this game looks for, just a gigantic franchise with the money that Pokemon Go has. Really compared to its other Nintendo counterparts, Nintendo first-party games are just a step far beyond what Pokemon is doing right now. And of course, this is an article that I thought was pretty funny and sad at the same time. The Van Gogh Museum fiasco underlines a deep-rooted issue in the community. Pokemon and the Van Gogh Museum had a collaboration this year that included Pokemon theme recreations of legendary Dutch painter Vincent van Gogh works, as well as merchandise tied to the event, and a rare Pikachu card available with purchase alongside these limited edition items. As anyone who's paid attention to Pokemon in the past 7 years can tell you, scalpers have become an entrenched part of this community, as it's nearly impossible to attempt to buy any limited edition item without someone's bot swooping in and buying it to resell it on sites like eBay. While Pokemon fans have known to expect that, it's not often that this issue becomes a public spectacle. The Van Gogh Museum's new exhibit, however, was overrun by so many people it looked like something out of a Black Friday sale. Rather than just being fans hoping to acquire some special merch for themselves, many of these scalpers looking to hoard the items and jack up the prices. So this is let me switch over. Here's a video of it. So you can see this is just absolute insanity here. People just going in, grabbing, buying, just snagging as much crap as they can. A really sad scene, instead of like people just wanting to, enjoy these cool looking Pokemon stuff, it just became a, let's see, do I have this? Oh, here we go. And this is another thing from the Van Gogh Museum. I think there was a, here we go. We can look at this picture here. Look at this kind of thing. And then, I have these things on eBay for like $100. Someone's trying to sell this for like $6,000. $300. This Eevee with a straw hat. What the hell? The Van Gogh stuff, $200. Just absolute. Instead of like people actually just playing it. I'm not against people trying to make money. This is obviously falls really on Pokemon Company for doing this, not this limited edition stuff. Anyone with any intelligence could kind of see that this was going to happen. Any sort of foresight. And really, it's just sad to see. Instead of fans, getting one and really appreciating it, like, oh, this is my cool looking stuff, it immediately just gets grabbed by someone like trying to get as many as possible and then thrown onto eBay. Really sad to see this art go unappreciated. Well, let me go back here. The back button. It's not unusual for people to attempt to steal and sell Pokemon merchandise, especially cards. And more often than that, these are just petty crimes. The Van Gogh Museum fiasco, however, it was a public embarrassment. The Pokemon Company museum had to cease its card distribution for the safety of its patrons and employees. Insane. But even if the cards are no longer given out at the museum, the learning aftermath of the scalpers can still be seen on overpriced eBay listings as well as associated merchandise. Look at this. Yeah, you still have this is current eBay. Some of this stuff. I mean, this doesn't look too bad, but like $80. Wow, $100. So some of this, like, it's still like, yeah, it's going for like $100, which isn't too bad, but still kind of crazy. I'm glad it's kind of like settled down though. The Pokemon Company issued an apology and since it's offered the card through the Pokemon Center store, but has neglected to manufacture more of the merchandise, which would kind of be the way to really stick it to scalpers. Is like, all right, you want to go crazy over the merchandise, well, and we'll just print a ton of it, and then drive the price to like zero, which sucks for collectors, but it's not that like the Pokemon Company hasn't reprinted the crap out of well-selling series. They're kind of known for doing that. Like, oh, this Pokemon set's selling really well and the prices are really high. Well, hey, let's print a ton more of it. Then we'll sell. And then, of course, the price of those cards end up going down, and down. And people that sort of collected them pay the price for it. And then, of course, we'll move on to Pokemon Go's remote raid changes undermine the community at Surge. This is an interesting part because I have some issues with what he said about this. At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, Pokemon Go developer Niantic made it easier for players to partake in raids with the remote raid pass. That let you play the game from anywhere. It was a huge move for the game. It is now possible to partake in these events regardless of where you live and where your friends were. This was especially helpful for people who lived in rural areas where Pokemon Go was typically not well supported, as well as disabled players who typically have trouble playing Pokemon Go due to the focus on its walking to reach objectives. And then in March, Niantic made the remote passes more expensive and limited how many you can use in a day, which fundamentally undermined the way several subsets of the Pokemon Go community had been playing the game for 3 years. The subsequent backlash spawned a fan campaign using the hashtag #HearUsNiantic, in which players expressed how these changes affected their enjoyment of the game, and with some going as far to say the increase in the price for remote passes felt like a tax on the disabled community. Despite protests and boycotts, these restrictions remain in the game to this day. Well, this is interesting. Let me take a drink here. Because I actually think this was a good movement for Niantic, and really like a move that it had to make. People using remote rate, they want to try and like make this about like, oh, these poor rural players, oh, the poor disabled players. Give me a break. The real disabilities are fat, by the way. I'm sure the subset of disabled players is like 0.001% of Pokemon Go. Like if you had a wheelchair or really like, yeah, let me go to the park and play Pokemon Go. That's the game I want to play. What was really happening is like people were just spending an absolute ton on these remote raid passes. There were discords around using these raid passes where like people could play like 24/7 because you could connect to people in Japan, people in China, anywhere the game was played, people in Europe. Like, oh, hey, you want to join my raid? Because I mean, you have like I think up to 5 people can join using a remote raid pass. So you could. There's even like apps on your phone because I've used them where it's like, oh, I need to beat this Moltres, but I'm by myself. You know what? Let me get onto Pokemon Genie here, and then like you can put up the Pokemon raid, and then people will join. You copy their friend codes, you add them. It's all actually really streamlined. It's amazing how streamlined it is. 5 other people will join your raid, and now you can beat it easily. You don't need to play with other people. You don't need to gather around with other people in real life to do these raids. So, and usually the people playing on Pokemon Genie are way better than the random people you're going to find in a park. So in a lot of ways, like these really hardcore players were playing by themselves, remote raiding, people in like in a Discord or like I said, through this app, and just playing by themselves. So like you don't need to interact with anybody. You can just hit up raid, use the remote raid passes. Of course, they're not going to get rid of them now because it is a huge amount of money in their game. People buying these remote raid passes, and then raiding just becomes such a huge part of the game. It is a very big pay to win mechanic in terms of getting Pokemon, really good raid Pokemon, which are some of the most powerful Pokemon in Pokemon Go. So overall, it just becomes a really unhealthy situation. And I think Niantic realized that this was going to kind of kill their game eventually if people just stop playing with each other at the locations. There was like remote raid like nights, or Wednesday night you go in, you meet up. There's a bunch of raids, so people would like meet up at a local park, certain groups, and they'll do these raids in real life where you can have up to like 20 people in a raid. And this is a good idea, but if you continually have people that are just playing by themselves, using the raids to like get people joining in, like these really like good players to join in, and they don't need to rely on anyone in the actual vicinity, it was eventually going to sort of fracture their community, and then people no longer needed to actually play with other people. So in the end, and then they're trying to frame this as like, oh, the disabled community. It wasn't. It's nothing like that. I mean, I do feel bad for rural players, and like, oh, hey, you want to, I can, get a hold of like my brother, like, hey, you want to help me out with this raid, or we have like a Discord group, or I think it was like a Facebook group with like local players that like, hey, anyone want to like help me on this, this Moltres or whatever legendary Pokemon? I need help with this guy. Can you get in? Any of you guys want in? Like, oh heck yeah, we'll join you. And then the remote raid that part, kind of fun. But overall, it just was not healthy. It's just not healthy for these games. And they kind of like open Pandora's box. There's no way they're going to be able to get it back in. I kind of hope with Monster Hunter now they don't add this stuff into it, because overall I just don't think it's healthy for the community, or for the game, when you make the sort of AR in real life experience completely reliant, or really you have this like subset. It kind of fractures the community. Now there's a subset that just use the remote raid passes all the time, and kind of bring in people from half the world away to help them with raids. Yeah, that's here. To see him try to like make it, oh, it's a tax on disabled people. I hate those arguments. It's scummy to try and hide behind disabled people that make up a fraction of percent of the community, and say like, oh yeah, you're hurting these people, and these poor rural players. They're poor rural players. It needed to be done. It needed to be done, and trying to hide behind him is, like I said, scumbag move. Niantic struggles to go beyond Pokemon Go. This is not related to Pokemon, but yeah, they have had issues with this. The NBA World canceled, the Marvel game. I think Monster Hunter Now, which I play, is doing well. Oh, Niantic was subject to a lawsuit accusing it of systemic sexual bias. Oh my gosh, Boys Club, look out! Like every company has to have one of these lawsuits. This is actually kind of interesting. The death of the 3DS eShop shakes Pokemon trading. And this is, of course, 3DS and Wii U. That's a big thing, is shutting down in 2023. And apparently this is kind of making it hard for you to take stuff from the older games into the newer ones. The difference between games, I guess you had to go Pokemon Home. Services like and the host from the However, DS 3DS was a bridge between the older generations and Home through the app called the Pokemon Bank. The 3D app user transfer games from 3DS games to Home, thus to the Switch, like Scarlet and Violet. Home's probably still the best solution, but the Pokemon Company has launched for this problem, as it does not have to rely on specific hardware to store and trade different monsters. But without Bank, some Pokemon have become difficult, even impossible to obtain and trade over to modern games. As a writing bank still works for those who have purchased it and installed it on their 3DS before the eShop shut down, the tool is no longer readily available for newer players. Wow. That is one of the things, and this is actually kind of segues in this other problem, which is kind of funny and interesting from a competitive standpoint. Competitive Pokemon has a big hacking controversy. Competitive Pokemon, you have people steroids, and cheating is not, uh, you know, uh, not contained to regular sports. While not every Pokemon player is embedded in the competitive scene, ranked Pokemon's play is still a pillar of the RPG millions of players play every year. However, at this year's Pokemon World Championship tournament in Yokohama, several players were banned from competing after it was discovered they were using hacked teams that weren't approved for competitive use at an official tournament. However, some competitors told Kotaku, Pokemon Company's ruling on the matter has been inconsistent, which made their bans on the headlining event of the year all the more devastating. In the fallout, new data seems to reveal this kind of homebrewing of competitive viable teams is rampant within the community. It says kind of interesting, and I've known about this, like PK Hex. Essentially, like takes a lot of time and effort to like raise these perfect Pokemon, and that's actually one of the reasons I don't even want or try to get into competitive Pokemon. Just the time and effort that you need to put in to get like the perfect IVs, perfect nature. You got to get the right move sets and that kind of stuff. It can take so long to do it for 6 Pokemon, to have for a team. And I don't know if like these players, have like different teams that they swap into, but it's insane the level it does. So I really get the fact that people would actually go in and then hack Pokemon just so like, hey, I can have them. It's all ready to go. I can, experiment and play with it. That's a huge advantage to be able to do that. I would probably, if I was trying to do it officially, I would hack the Pokemon and then be like, okay, like have like maybe one account like that's hacked. Like here's what I'm going to try. Here's my experimental Pokemon, and then maybe try and earn it on the game itself. Legit. So I wouldn't run into problems. But if you have like say like a new meta pops up, right before this event, preparing for this event, being able to have that, being able to do it quickly and have the sort of ability to move around and like make last second changes that people don't expect could be the difference between winning and losing. That's a huge advantage to be able to do this. But again, I just don't, to me, like having the best Pokemon is good for the competitive part of it. And that's always the trade off. Doing like training, like should training Pokemon really be part of the competitive scene? Like that, putting in tons of time just to grind something out. It's not really part of the skill of competitive play, in my opinion. I think that's a pretty uncontroversial thing to say. It's really, the planning and the strategy and the decision making that really makes up the essence of competitive Pokemon. Not necessarily the time you put into grinding a perfect Pokemon up. That's that's an interesting problem they're gonna have. Hopefully, I just hope the Pokemon just make it easier to get in future games. Like just say like, hey, here's like a tools to get it really easily, and we really remove the grinding and the RNG from developing this stuff. This is actually, I think, one of the most interesting part of the article is the machine must be stopped or at least made better. Let me take a wet my whistle here. The machine must be stopped or at least made better. We Kotaku launched XP share on the Pokemon column. Blah blah blah. All right. Hang on a second. Let's see. All right. This pretty much extends to every pillar of the Pokemon business. The merch can sell out before fans can buy it because of scalper money chasing. The Pokemon Company has as that of a dedicated fan who wants a Pikachu plush off the shelf. Pokemon CCO Takato Ushinomiya. Yeah, that's it. Said this year that the company's annual releases may not be sustainable, as it's affecting the quality of games like Scarlet and Violet, which are largely defined by big ideas and squandered potential. But if they sell 23 million copies, despite being raked through the coals for their poor technical performance, is anything actually going to change? The Pokemon Company knows it can count on people to show up, no matter how poor or frustrating its offerings are. Can the machine ever be stopped? That is a big question. Last year, Pokemon Arceus and Scarlet and Violet showed that Pokemon is growing beyond simply banking on nostalgia. But 2023 showed that all that growth can be squandered as inevitably it's funneled back into the bottom line. Machine is pumping out Pokemon games, cards, merchandise, and collaborations, a rate only rivaled by the late 20s Pokemon era. And yet, with every botched launch and misguided decision, the ongoing lack of real change, the facade of this most hopeful franchise gets increasingly exposed to the money-making machine it is underneath. Harsh words there. But yeah, this is a big issue for Pokemon. And it's really been sad to see, personally, because I played a crap ton of Red. Not as much Silver, but slowly my interest in Pokemon has kind of declined over the years. But I still, have a lot of nostalgia and strong feelings for Pokemon. I really enjoy the franchise, and you want to see it do well. It's a great series. And I still have, like I said, really fond memories of it. And they kind of see it now. I mean, they are putting out games, especially after they kind of moved to the main series. I liked Arceus. I thought that was like a really good concept. I think it really kind of brought the 3D Pokemon, the idea that like, hey, 3D Pokemon is a thing, but there is the sort of feeling that the quality is lacking. When you look, like I said, at AAA Nintendo games and just the overall level of there's something about it that you can really see the love and the care and the reverence for the franchise in those games. There's a certain level of quality that is going to be there. And when you look at Pokemon games now that are being put out on the Switch, it would be completely unacceptable for those for Pokemon games, or no, for like say like Tears of the Kingdom to have those issues. So to see that happen is sad in a Pokemon game. And the series and the quality of the series has been on the decline. They look ugly. And I mean, I haven't played the games. They're all right. Like Arceus was good for what it was, but doesn't have the level of beauty like say the Tears of the Kingdom or Super Mario Odyssey. They're not, Switch isn't a graphical powerhouse. But at the same time, like, man, I expect a little more. I think that's really one of the big things for me about the Pokemon game isn't necessarily the competitive aspect of it. My enjoyment is like, all right, I'm in this, fantastical world with these magical creatures called Pokemon, and really kind of exploring and enjoying the beauty of those games, uh, to me is a big part of what makes the enjoyment of the Pokemon series a thing. Like why would I want to go into a world, that's constantly like bugging out or not really living up to its potential in terms of how these Pokemon look, how they feel, like really that's one of the things I liked about Arceus is kind of felt like Pokemon weren't just, random encounters in grass. They kind of felt like they were part of the landscape, part of the environment. Seeing how they lived and interacted with each other, I think was really cool. That's something I think Pokemon Snap does really well. And the sort of design, I guess, or business model that they have right now to just sort of pump them out, get as many games, or try to like almost like a yearly release of these games, Pokemon games. It's just not sustainable, and it's eventually, I think, going to hurt their franchise. That's a lot of things I see in the industry right now, like especially with all these crossovers and stuff. They're not taking care of their own franchise and like, hey, it will get you increased profits for the year, but 10 years down the line, I think you're going to pay for it. 5, 10 years, who knows? It's not going to help you because players going to realize, like with each like kind of like bug or half baked game or idea that you come out with, there's going to be players that slowly like kind of lose those memories, kind of lose the shine off the franchise, where they're thinking like they look at the new release that's going to come out and like, should I buy it? Instead of like, oh yeah, Pokemon, I'm definitely going to buy it. I think those fans slowly decrease the more you come out with subpar games. But let's move on from Pokemon. There is one thing I was kind of looking at, and it's kind of personal, but like let's look at the sort of year in review. If you haven't, you can go onto Steam, log in, and kind of look at this year in review. 18 games played, 25% of the time. Valheim played a lot of that in the early parts of the year. Fires of Rubicon was probably the Armored Core 6. Freedom Planet makes up most of the playtime. Got more achievements than the median games it played. It's kind of interesting to see like the breakdown percentage you played, playtimes had, and games were released 1 to 7 years. That's interesting. Like new releases 8 or more years ago. Wow. So a little bit of nostalgia. Like a lot of these games are stuff that was released a while back. It kind of breaks down mechs, pixel graphics, platformers, bullet hell, open world survival. I do like me some platformers. I think shoot 'em ups will probably expand next year. Our Armored Core Fires of Rubicon, baby, unlocks. I thought there was. Did it tell you where the controllers? Oh yeah, this is kind of breakdown. 33% with keyboard and mouse, 87% with controller. Very cool. I don't think it tells you the total playtime. Does it? 18 games. I'm surprised it's only 18 games. Of course, if you go over, you can find like Nintendo Switch has their own year breakdown. Very cool. 5 total games. I only played 135 hours on my Switch this year, which I think is actually kind of crazy. I was expecting more, but not really. Tears of the Kingdom, 71 hours. Pikmin 3, 33. I ended up like 100%ing that. But this is a game, that's not, I paid $60 for. I only got 33 hours on it, but I still really enjoyed it because it was a fantastic game. Splatoon 3 competitive game, like I didn't really play it all that much that year, just at the beginning. It's I don't know if it's quite as good as Splatoon 2, but it's a fun game for what it is. A breakdown. Look at this action adventure strategy. Mostly action. It's mostly Tears of the Kingdom. This is kind of a cool to see, what games how you played during the year and what plan we have. I'm hoping to play some little more Minecraft than we did last year. That'd be fun. Get back into that. Definitely play a lot more shooters, but should be a good year next year. I'm looking forward to it as we continue to improve. Hopefully, the quality of the videos. Hopefully, I'll be able to make some more standalone videos, not just the podcast. But we'll see what the future holds in terms of like how much free time I have. We've hit 500 subs, but we need to get the watch time up before we can monetize things like super chats and whatnot. I'm going to continue to work on the podcast and get it done. So, guys, that's it. That's it for the session, this podcast session. Hope you enjoyed it. I feel like I said, leave any comments on any of the stuff, any of the things we covered as far as like the cost of games. Should dailies be regulated? Let me know. Let me know what you think. Of course, the stuff about Pokemon. Should they make remote pay passes cost less? Is it a tax on the disabled? Who knows? That's it for the video, guys. I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.